Time to dive into another Cowboys mailbag, and you already know, these questions from the fans never disappoint. Let's kick things off with a solid observation that came through about the Texans. They decided to pay early, locking in Derek Stingley's deal. And you know what? That strategy might just be genius. When teams move early on contract extensions, it often looks like an overpay at first glance. But give it a year or two, and suddenly, that same contract starts looking like a bargain. The market always climbs. So while it might sting a bit today, paying now helps you beat the inflated price tags of tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Cowboys? They've got this odd habit of trying to pay last year's prices in a market that only goes up. That conservative approach might keep them from overcommitting, but it can also leave them chasing their tails when it's time to actually compete. Moving on, there's always buzz about how running backs have lost their value, especially in the draft. Fans keep asking why teams are still taking backs in the first round. Didn't we move past that? But here's the thing. Every so often, the talent is just too undeniable. Look at last year. Some teams realized they could get two completely different positions, like Saquon Barkley and Darius Slayton, for almost the same price. And let's be honest, if you got a shot at a workhorse like Barkley, you take it. This year's running back class is deep, really deep. That might bring the average draft value down a notch, but don't be shocked if names like Ashton Janney sneak into the first round. He's just too good. You might also hear buzz around guys like Travion Henderson or Quinton Judkins. Even if they don't go in round one, they're definitely in that top 50 mix. Bottom line, when the talent's high enough, the position value chatter gets quiet real fast. Now onto the trenches, an area that fans are always vocal about. People are begging for another offensive lineman, a defensive tackle, or maybe a corner. But here's the reality. The Cowboys seem pretty set on the offensive line. They've got their starting five, plus guys like Brock Hoffman and Asim Richards waiting in the wings. They also brought in Robert Jones, and while he's not a game changer, he adds depth. So unless there's a steal on day 3 of the draft, don't expect a major move there. The real concern is a defensive tackle. This team keeps saying it wants to run the ball and stop the run, but so far, they've only halfway committed to that identity. They need a real run stuffer inside. Not just guys who can get by. They need someone who can anchor the middle, eat blocks, and blow up plays in the backfield. The moves they've made so far just don't inspire much confidence on that front. As for corner, yes, absolutely, they need help. That position still feels thin, and adding another outside presence feels like a must before week 1. Some fans gave their own grades for the Cowboys' free agency period, and it's safe to say expectations are mixed. For Dallas standards, maybe it's an A+, but compared to the rest of the league, probably more like a B or even a C+. The team did some solid work, no doubt, but they didn't blow the doors off. There's still room to improve, and depending on what happens in the draft, this class could look better or worse in hindsight. Either way, it's not over yet, and free agency grades always age fast once the games start. Now let's talk wide receivers. One fan floated the idea of trading for Courtland Sutton, and yeah, on paper, it sounds like a dream fit for Dallas. They even liked him coming out of college, so there's a history there. Locking in a receiver like him for the next 4 years makes sense. But then there's the Denver Broncos side of it. Why would they trade away one of their only legit pass catchers unless they're blown away by an offer? They're not in a place to be subtracting talent. You can't seriously expect them to roll into the season relying on Marvin Mims and a bunch of question marks. They need Sutton more than they need a mid-round pick, and unless Dallas is ready to overpay, this one feels like a long shot. It's the kind of rumor that sounds fun in March, but never quite materializes when things get serious. Then came a question about trade-down scenarios in the draft. Could the Cowboys be a team that moves back if the right offer comes in? Maybe. But here's the issue. It takes two to tango. You need a team desperate to move up. Maybe someone like the Steelers gets quarterback fever and jumps up to grab their guy. That's a scenario that could trigger a move. But there aren't a ton of obvious candidates. Maybe a team like Atlanta or Arizona falls in love with a specific defender and wants to move up a few spots. That's possible. But the Cowboys are sitting in that tricky range where they're just as likely to have a blue-chip guy fall into their lap as they are to find value in moving back. And let's be honest, if a player's good enough for someone else to climb the board, maybe you should just take him yourself. Someone else asked about the chances of guys like Tyler Warren, Ashton Janney, or Teteroa McMillan still being on the board when the Cowboys pick. It's not impossible. You're probably looking at a better than 50% chance that at least one of those three is still available. All three? That's a long shot. Maybe 0%. But one of them? That's doable. Janney seems like a natural fit for teams like the Raiders or Bears. The Patriots could always throw a curveball and take a receiver early, though offensive line might be a higher priority for them. McMillan has fans and skeptics, but someone's going to fall in love with his frame and fluidity. Tyler Warren's trickier. Tight ends are always hard to peg. Teams like the Jets or Niners could surprise us, but he also might just sneak into the top 15. The Colts at pick 14 feel like a real possibility. Point is, there's a decent chance one of those names is still on the board, and if so, the Cowboys will have a decision to make. And now we get into the sleepers, a favorite topic for draft junkies. Everyone wants to know who the under-the-radar guys are. Names like Phil Maffa out of Clemson or Kyle Williams from SMU pop up. Brandon Cahoe-Dixon and Elijah Roberts also get mentioned. These aren't top 50 guys, but in the later rounds, there's value there. Roberts especially intrigues people. He's a bit of a tweener, but shows flashes. Then there's Teddy Banyan from Cal, a linebacker who might not be all there instinctively yet, but has traits worth developing. That's what day 3 is all about. You're not finding finished products. You're looking for moldable talent, special teams contributors, and maybe a guy or two who can surprise you and become a starter down the road. And yeah, there are a lot of names to keep tabs on. Taj Brooks, Bashal Tutin, hell, even Don Chaney Jr. You can put the sleeper label on just about anyone once you get into the later rounds. Still with me? Good, because we're just getting warmed up. Let's keep this rolling because the Cowboys offseason still has plenty of layers to unpack, especially when it comes to the direction they're heading in free agency and the draft. One name that came up recently is Stephon Gilmore, and there's chatter around whether or not Dallas should bring him back. Problem is, he reportedly wants $15 million for a one-year deal, and that's a tough pill to swallow. For a team like the Cowboys, who already walk a tight line with the cap and tend to be conservative in spending, that's probably a no-go. Sure, Gilmore's still got something left in the tank, but paying top-end money for a player on the back nine of his career just isn't the type of move Dallas tends to make. It's all about value, and if the price doesn't come down, they're likely to pass. Then there's the lingering curiosity surrounding T-Mac, Teteroa McMillan. Some fans are confused about his draft stock slipping a bit. A few months back, he was one of the hotter names in the receiver class, and now some folks aren't sure what to make of him. But here's the deal. Trust your initial evaluations. McMillan might not test like a freak, but the guy is smooth, fluid, and consistently productive. He's not a burner, but he's not slow either. He just glides through routes with a natural feel. Sometimes the league overthinks things, especially around draft time. Suddenly, everyone wants shifty, ultra-athletic slot guys, and they forget how valuable a big-bodied, polished outside receiver can be. T-Mac may not be for every system, but in the right offense, he's a WR1. Period. Don't get too caught up in draft board swings that are more about narrative than film. Luther Burden's name also came up, and it's a similar situation. Another highly regarded receiver whose stock has cooled a bit as we inch closer to the draft. Now, unless there's some behind-the-scenes medical or character red flag, this might just be one of those weird cycles where a player fades for no real reason. Sometimes that prospect fatigue sets in. Scouts and fans have been talking about a guy for months, so they start nitpicking. It doesn't mean the talent vanished. If you believe Burden was a top-tier guy back in October, that probably still holds up. The film hasn't changed. The game tape always tells the truth. And unless something major comes out, teams looking for impact receivers would be smart not to overthink it. Shifting gears again, let's talk about the Cowboys and how many moves they still might make before the draft hits. Some folks are hopeful for a big splash, but that doesn't seem likely at this point. Maybe they add a small piece here or there, but don't expect anything significant until after the draft. One major factor here is roster size. Dallas already has 74 players under contract, and they're projected to make 10 picks in the draft. That's 84 out of a maximum of 90 spots. Unless they plan on making cuts soon, they don't have much breathing room to add more bodies, at least not ones that require decent contracts. So yeah, unless someone falls in their lap at a bargain, it's probably a quiet period from now until draft weekend. One fan asked how many more free agents the team might realistically sign before the draft. 0 might be the best answer. They've made their major moves. Anything else is likely to be a depth signing or someone brought in after June, when cap numbers shift and more veterans hit the market. But for now, this looks like the team they're taking into the draft. Then came a bold question. What about drafting Amarian Hampton at number 12 overall? That's aggressive. Look, no disrespect to Hampton. The guy is legit. Easily one of the top 2 backs in this class. He runs with power, vision, and that finishing burst you want in a bell cow. But number 12? That's a tough sell. Not because he isn't talented, but because the positional value just doesn't line up. Running backs simply don't move the needle the same way a corner, edge rusher, or offensive tackle can. Unless he's a once-in-a-decade type prospect, it's just hard to justify using a premium pick on a back when you can find a solid contributor later. And this year's class has plenty of them. You're not getting another Amarian Hampton in the 4th round, but you might get someone 85 to 90% as effective, and that's the calculation front offices are making. This is where smart drafting really comes into play. It's not just about grabbing the best player. It's about maximizing long-term value across the board. You want playmakers at premium spots in round 1. That doesn't mean running backs are useless or unimportant, but in today's NFL, there's a blueprint that the top teams follow, and more often than not, that blueprint doesn't include early picks on backs, unless the fit is just undeniable. And while we're talking value and draft strategy, the Cowboys are in a spot where they need to come out of this class with multiple contributors. They can't afford misses, especially with some holes still unaddressed on the roster. They've got a solid core, but that next wave of young, cheap talent needs to start stepping up. That's how you maintain competitiveness year after year, by hitting on those mid-round picks and filling out the depth chart with guys who can actually play. Fans will keep debating names and positions all the way up to the draft, and that's part of the fun. But no matter which direction Dallas goes, they have to stay aggressive and calculated. Take swings on high-upside players. Don't be afraid of character guys if the locker room can handle it. Be willing to move up if there's a stud sitting there. And if nothing makes sense, trade down, stockpile picks, and keep building. The margin for error is razor thin in the NFC, and the Cowboys know it. They've been good. Now the challenge is getting over the hump and finally being great. It starts with the draft. It continues with how they finish out free agency. And it ends with whether or not the talent they bet on actually delivers when the lights come on. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. In a move that has Cowboys fans buzzing, recent rumors suggest that Dallas could be making a play for one of the NFL's top wide receivers, Stefon Diggs. After an injury-plagued 2024 season with the Houston Texans, where Diggs amassed 47 receptions for 496 yards and 3 touchdowns before suffering a torn ACL, the star wideout may soon find himself back on the market. The Cowboys, who are in search of a proven game-changer to complement Dak Prescott, could be eyeing Diggs to strengthen their receiving core as they look to make a deep playoff run. Diggs, known for his explosive performances in Buffalo, including leading the NFL in receptions and receiving yards in 2020, has long been a standout talent. His ability to change the course of a game, whether through a stunning catch or a game-winning touchdown, has cemented his place as one of the league's most dangerous receivers. With a career that includes 3 consecutive Pro Bowl nominations and over 10,000 career receiving yards, Diggs could bring a new dynamic to the Cowboys' offense. His skill set fits perfectly with Dallas' needs, particularly with their focus on boosting their passing attack. Despite his injury setback, Diggs' potential impact in Dallas would be immense. If fully recovered, his playmaking ability would elevate the Cowboys' aerial game, providing Prescott with a reliable and elite target. With the Texans focused on rebuilding and the Cowboys pushing for a Super Bowl, a trade could be a win-win for both sides. As the trade deadline approaches, all eyes will be on how this high-stakes drama unfolds. Could the Cowboys be about to land their next big star? That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.